Today I'm joined by Samuel Fagerholm, who is joining us, I think, in Sweden. Is that right?
Yeah, it's in Sweden, Uppsala.
I think in Sweden it's probably going to be a bit colder than it is in the UK right now. But welcome to the show. We're going to talk about your playing and coaching career. So we always start off on the show with what it was like growing up, in Sweden, in your background, who got you into football.
Yeah, well, I actually grew up on a small island that's called Åland, and we speak Swedish there, but it's actually an island that belongs to Finland. So I'm originally from Finland, and quite early on, then when you're growing up and you want to go to like university or have a career, then it's quite normal that we move, to either Finland or Sweden. In my case, Stockholm. So, but what got me into football? Yeah, maybe my bigger brother, who played football, or else we're not so many like sports people in my family. We're more musicians actually. So we maybe stood out a little bit there. But yeah, just loved to play since I was young, and kept on playing till I was around 24 or something like that.
Well, we're going to talk about that playing career that obviously ended pretty early on, because as I said to you before, I think the career could have gone on, but there must have been a reason. But on that island that you grew up on, I know there's a few people that I've spoken to who have not maybe grown up there, but have been there before. But what's the opportunities like on that island to play football?
Well, everything is close by, so to say, so it's easy access. You have like a very safe environment. But the amount of teams are maybe not so much. You have one professional team on the men's side, and you have one professional team on the women's side, which is of course very good on such a small place. But I mean, that's the path that you can take there if you want to, get anywhere. So not much to choose from, but the place itself is very good for a kid, we can say.
So when you got into football, you said that you moved over to go to university, but to play football, what was your first academy route? How did you, depth in your ideas in the game?
Well, yeah, like on Åland, and also quite early on, I would say I got involved in first team football, so to say, but on a lower level. I was actually 13 years old when I started playing first team football with guys who was 25 and 35, and so that was a bit strange. Of course, but it was some idea I had, or like I wanted to build up some kind of robustness with myself, be a little bit stronger, be a little bit more mentally stronger in going into duels and stuff. So when I went back to normal youth football afterwards for some couple of years, then I had more of a resilience to going into duels, and then especially the mentality of it, since I had met bigger guys.
But when you played with those bigger guys, did you pay to play, or were you sort of getting paid to play? What was that like at 13?
No, that was just amateur football, so to say. So nothing paid there. But yeah, it was close to my home also, so I could bicycle there, and so it was easy in that sense. But afterwards, we had more of a academy style to it, with IFK Mariehamn's youth team, then the professional club there. So played with them for a couple of years until I moved up until in the second team. Now we can say it's called FC Åland, but it was like the second team to IFK Mariehamn, and there I played for since I was 16 to maybe 21, something like that, before I moved to Sweden. Or in between there also, when I was 19, I managed to get up to the first team, so to say, the IFK Mariehamn, and then I had a contract for one season, and then I got paid some money.
So, but you also made an appearance in the top flight of Finland, is that right?
Yeah, exactly. So that was for that club, IFK Mariehamn.
Could you talk to us about the feelings of going into this game? Because obviously going in as such a young player into the top flight of a division must be quite something.
Yeah, I think I don't have so much memories of it, so that's maybe says something. I think I was a little bit terrified. No, but definitely, I think I was. It was a big thing for me to at all be in that team and that environment, to train every day almost, or in the winter we trained 2 times per day. So we had 10 sessions in the preseason there in the winter. That was quite a bit for us. But then, never really broke through. So I did my appearance there, but that was it with that team. So what I can remember, it was a little bit of a shaky appearance for sure.
So what came after that then? Because I know that you played for FC Åland from 2009. So
Yeah.
that was the next club again. Was that professional?
And so that's more semi-professional or even amateur football. So it was like the third division in Finland there, and that's like was kind of the second team to IFK Mariehamn. So most of my career there before I moved over to Sweden.
And what was that like to play in a semi-professional? I mean, in the country that these clubs are, is it a big gap between the semi-professional and professional?
Yeah, I would say so, or at least between those levels. So that's maybe is a issue on Åland, that you have that level, third division, and then you're gonna jump straight up into Veikkausliiga, and that's it's too big of a step. You need
Really?
something in between there, I would say.
How would you sort of adapt that then? Because I know for the Premier League this season, you've got all the three clubs that came up last year are probably going to go back down, and that's not a good look for the Premier League and the Championship, which is obviously showing the gap between the two. But in Sweden, a less known division here in England, what would you say you can do to sort of level the balance?
Oh, that's a big question, of course. It's always, connected to money over time, and since you have those different TV or sponsorships or whatever it is, but overall, you always have more money when you are in those top divisions, and that like gives you the money to go around there. And when someone comes up, they just have a different budget, and it's hard. It's not impossible, but you really need to break through those 2-3 first years and like establish yourself, and then you're in the loop. So if I had an easy answer to that, I think I would. Yeah, everybody would want me as a coach, but you really need to have like a strong foundation with the team that you have. It's easy that when you have a successful season that all the players are getting sold, and then when you're coming up, you're actually having a worse team in the top division than you had in the second division, so to say. So I think having long contracts and deciding which players you're actually gonna sell or let leave, and then making that good year and having the ability to choose for yourself, I think that's a big key.
In 2014, you also played for Tabby FK, which I know pretty well. I know Dalibor Savic managed that team a few years ago. But in terms of you going to Tabby, were you, again, I'm guessing this may have been semi-pro, and if it was, what were you doing to fill your time?
Yeah, so I moved to Sweden and started playing for Tabby there. Yes, with John Wall as the head coach. Then he's a great coach, and what I did on the side was like studying to be a coach at the same time. So at that moment, it was more a thing I wanted to do to be able to play football, and didn't have so much thinking about that I wanted to coach straight away, but more like, okay, I can study football and I can play football, and then it's almost professional, so to say. And then actually I also did 2 different education at the same time. I'm also a singer, so I did a singing education in classical singing. So that's a different part of my life, so to say.
Do you sing in Swedish or English?
Both.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that must be quite something to have another language to then sing in it. So obviously, I know you speak English really, really well, but then to go and sing in it is something else.
No, I think I was singing Italian and different languages also. Like,
whoa, that is crazy. I've never heard anyone that can sing in many languages, but I suppose you're the first. But
I don't think so. In the classical world, it's quite common to do these different areas. Yeah.
In the classic, okay. So in terms of you doing this, so you were playing football, singing, and then you were also learning how to be a coach as well. So when you were singing, was that taking up more of your time than football was?
No, it was more of a, maybe I was a little bit in between, like what I would really put my time into. Like, should I invest my time and talent into singing, or should I do it in football? And trying a little bit of both. But in terms of like going for becoming better and like being professional in something, I always aspired more in the football and the sports world. And singing for me has become more of like an outlet and a great hobby, something I really love doing, but that I don't really want to put too much pressure into either.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There's always a problem when I interview people that have played for Swedish, Finnish, and Norwegian clubs. Is the team names? So I don't know this team's name too well, but it was after Tabby, and I'm going to try and say it. Is it Sunderberg's IK?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Okay.
Sundbybergs IK. Yeah, it's a club that we were in the third division in Sweden, and we managed to win the third division, go up to second division in Sweden, and yeah, I had a really nice time there with also a good coach and good teammates. A lot of different nationalities in that team and culture, so to say. Really great time, but that was also when I pretty much ended my football career in 2016, I think it was, right?
Yeah, it was about then. It was 2015, I believe.
Yeah.
2015, because you won it and then you left. So did you leave it because you couldn't quite break into that professional game?
No, or yeah, maybe a little bit of both. That I was, so to say, on top of my game at that point. Like I was really having a good season and being in good shape. So I think that I could have got a little bit closer, maybe move up a division or two, maybe. But that's a maybe. But we were having our first daughter, so to say. We were expecting. So we decided to move back to Åland to be closer around our family and friends and yeah, becoming young parents, so to say. So we decided to do that, and I think that was the main thing to like stop playing, so to say.
Well, I know the gap to like have a child for a lot of people is between like 25, maybe 35. So for you, you've obviously chosen the earlier sort of like time to have children. So what was that like to balance everything? Because obviously, you know, now you've got children, now you've got singing, now you've got potentially more football, coaching. How did you balance it all?
Yeah, it was a lot. But when we moved back to Åland, then yeah, the singing education stopped, the football education stopped. Then I was more like, okay, so what am I gonna do now? It was a little bit of a big change in life. Not only that we're gonna have our first child, but also everything changing in terms of yeah, the reality we were living in. So then it was actually at the same time, like 2 days after we had got our daughter there, we were on the hospital still, like yeah, and then they called from Åland United, the women's club, and asked if I wanted to be assistant coach there. So yeah, it was it was an interesting timing, but then as you hear, like a very fast transition into coaching, so I didn't have too much time to think about what I was gonna do. It happened.
I mean, you're still really early on into this coaching career, but we actually didn't mention when you were at Tabby in 2014, you sort of did some coaching stuff there, right? You were the head coach of the under-19s team, which
Yeah, that's true.
Obviously isn't the men's team, but for a player that's getting into coaching, that's a really good opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Like I did, and before that, I also actually coached a little bit. It started with my younger brother's team, and then yeah, helped out with FC Åland when we were living in Åland the first time. So I had done some different coaching jobs and some individual coaching and stuff like that. But that was a big difference, I would say, like in terms of how I looked at it. Like I was a player, and then I was just helping out with some coaching, kind of. And then yeah, there in 2017 when I was getting involved with Åland United, it was like my first it changed. Like that was more of a professional thinking of like, okay, I'm gonna be a coach now, and putting my time and effort into developing as a coach and also having time to do that.
So obviously now that you're a lot more experienced in the game compared to 2017, do coaches often, you know, after they go home, are they still thinking about formations? Are they still thinking about training? Because obviously that's all got to be planned for. And, you know, is your mind constantly thinking about that?
Well, I think it's been quite an, as you said, like also I'm an early or young coach. Like I'm only 32 still, but I have managed to be involved with like I see 3 different professional women's teams, like in Finland and Sweden, and been coaching pretty much full time since 2017 there, and so it has happened a lot, and I've been going through a lot, and I think I have tried to be very conscious about learning about how to become more of like a holistic or what to call it, like a coach that can actually live with this over time, you know, like having the sustainability was the word I was looking for, sustainability. And so in the beginning, like all in, like just working 24/7, so to say, or what we call it, like thinking about it, and it in the beginning it's also very rewarding. You get a lot of energy from it, and you get results from it also because you're so involved and you're doing so much work. But then of course over time you need to fine tune it, and it's not about working hard, it's about working smart and put your resources where you need to put it. So in the beginning you just cover it all and then you realize that you need to start distributing your time better. And I think that what you were talking about, like the mental thing of like, okay, are you bringing the work with you home? I think you just need to work on that part, and then finding ways to have a reset. Like either for me, very important to exercise. For example, if I exercise, I feel so much more refreshed and energized, and I have an easier way to let those thoughts go a little bit. And also the singing part for me is like very good outlet. But in the beginning, wasn't good at all on that. So it was with me at home, and my wife has definitely heard everything about everything. So she was my outlet in that sense. So she has been a big support. But I think I'm managing it better now, and I'm not really accepting, like when I hear so many different coaches that I met, but also when you read and you hear about these top coaches, that it is a thing that you can't switch it off, and you are gonna be outburned and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, I'm not really gonna accept that. Like I want to be involved in my kids, both kids' lives, and I want to be a good father and a good husband and so on. So I'm trying to work really hard to be sustainable in that, and it's not easy because it's also very fun and interesting to think about these things, and you want to control everything so much. But I think over time, if I want to do this for 30 more years, I need to be able to live with it and myself.
Yeah, because I know that the coaching game can go on for so long that 30 years is not a realistic. Is a realistic target. Sorry, like it's not unrealistic to think that in 30 years you'll still be in management. But on the coaching badges side, this has become quite like a more prominent thing for coaches to sort of grab whenever they can. Because you've currently got the A license, which is one off what Arne Slot, Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola have, which is the pro license. But I believe
I actually have the pro license. Yeah,
you've got it now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Could you talk to us then about getting that? Because obviously that is the highest thing that you can get in management.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't so long ago I got it, and it was like a 2-year education. Also say that those educations before that was really, really good. Like the B and A license has also been very rewarding, I think. And I think it's like with everything when it comes towards education, like it's what you yourself put into it, then what you're gonna get back from it, so to say. So some people talk about you're just gonna go through the badges and like get them, and then you can also try to invest some time to learn from it. And I think it was a really good education in terms of the elite football coaching role. Like, for example, talking about the sustainability part, but also getting a good grip or perspective of how broad the head coaching role is, and if I compare it to an assistant coaching role, who is more of a specialist, and sometimes it's interesting to think like that you're gonna transfer from assistant to head coaching, but it's like two different jobs, I would say, in my view at least. Like you're more of like what to say, like you have a whole staff that you're gonna manage, and you're gonna bring out the best from the staff, and then the staff itself maybe are bringing out the best from the players. But in terms of an assistant coach, it's maybe being hands-on with the players and having a close relationship with them. And of course, as a manager or as a head coach, of course you're gonna have a relationship with the players, but it's always gonna be a little bit conflicted with like you're taking out the starting 11, you're taking the hard decisions, and so you're never gonna be that close as when you were an assistant coach. And just different profiles. Like someone is really good on the field, like driving sessions, and then maybe being analytical in terms of taking out video clips, while being a leader overall for a group is having key knowledge or broad knowledge of like everything, and then being able to deal with people. So yeah, two different types of like expertise, I would say, and I think that that education was really good of like highlighting that and then going into what what is needed, so to say. So I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed meeting those other coaches that we had on the course and learning from them and discussing with them, and so it's been great.
I know a lot of coaches that have paid thousands for that top course, because obviously it's the highest course that you need. But you know, in terms of, as you said, the experience that you got out of it, do you think that the badges are really worth your time? Because there's limitations on, you can't manage for this club because you don't have a pro license, you can't manage for this club because you've only got a C license. Do you think that's a bit unfair? Because surely throughout the badges there is some sort of, you know, there's something that would mean you're still a coach regardless of if you've got the badge or not.
Yeah. And I mean, I also studied like on university sports science and psychology, and I think that education was as much like building for being a coach as this kind of education. This is more specific, of course, like the badges, but like an overall understanding of sports science or the coaching role was also really good, for sure. So I mean, I think that I definitely agree on that. There are a lot of people or coaches out there who would be competent enough to coach any team, so to say, like even if they don't have the pro license or the A license. So that's a little bit interesting. In terms of like getting a standard for youth teams, I think it's maybe good of like having some kind of like basic knowledge, knowing like, okay, at least we have this. But as I just said, and as we know, like, how are you like bringing in that education to yourself, or are you just like going through it, or are you getting something out from that? So you don't really know just by having the badge, so to say. So practical knowledge is, of course, really important. And I think it's maybe, you know, the collaboration of practical knowledge from playing, from coaching, together with the theoretical knowledge of, you know, the specific from the badges, but also more maybe all-rounded, like from psychology or from sports science, leadership, that can, if you melt all these things together, yeah, then I think you're on a good way. But definitely interesting question if it's, you know, if it's good or not. I more saw it as like, okay, this is how it works, like a football game, you know, the rules, you know, the regulations, and you need to score more than opponent. And if you're going to work in professional football, you need to do this. So let's do it. Easier said than done, of course. I understand that, but like more of that mindset, at least.
Let's talk about, you know, about your career again. So obviously, Åland United. Hang on a sec. Did you basically played an international game, right, for the island? Is that right?
Yeah, for Åland, yeah. So we're like a small island, and we competed in what to call it, like the Olympic Games for islands.
Yeah.
So NatWest Island Games. So not real national teams, but like under that level. But really rewarding thing to do, since, you know, everybody knows that, like, want to represent their own country or place, birthplace. I was part of 2 NatWest Island Games, so maybe it was 8 games or something like that totally. Really great experience as a player. Yeah, fun memories from that.
I can imagine, because obviously, imagine representing your, like, the place that you've grown up against these other guys. That would be quite something. But let's talk back to your career. Obviously, Åland United in 2020. You started in 2017, but in 2020, difficult year, right? COVID and everything, but a good year for you because you won 2 cups, you won Coach of the Year, and I think that was a really good year, despite half the world being in lockdown.
Yeah, that was amazing. I mean, we had built from 2018 when I took over as a head coach, and we put up the target, or I put up the target of like, okay, in 3 years we're gonna be competing for the national championship, and we did compete for it, and we actually won it also. So I mean, that's amazing, together with the Finnish Cup. So I mean, yeah, winning the double was like the final part of a long or short journey, whatever you call it, but like our journey at least for 3 years. And really amazing, like with the players who can come together there and did it, and the staff that you had and everything. It's hard to put into words almost, because I have such fond and good experience from it, fond memories and good experience from it. But I also felt like after that, like, okay, now we have done this. This was the main target, and then I could really feel like, okay, I don't have anything more to do here, which is maybe saying something how important goal setting is. Like, you could also have a different goal, like, we want to go to Champions League. Then of course you wanted to have done something the year after, but for me, I was done.
So is it because obviously, like Pep Guardiola, for example, at Manchester City, of course, a bit of a different instances in clubs, but for you, I know that at these sort of like levels, in terms of the lesser known leagues around the world, coaches and players don't really tend to stay too long. And obviously, you just said to that, after you won 2 cups, you decide to leave. Why would that be? Why would you not want to continue and push on to somewhere like the Champions League?
Yeah, good question. As I said, I think it was the whole idea of like building towards that was like the end vision for me. And we did something that had never been done before, like winning the double. So it was like we were gonna create the best team that had ever been in the club, and we did it. So it was then, I think, like as a coach, you really need to have that vision, that forward idea of like, okay, where are we going? And if you don't authentically feel that or see that, I don't think you have anything there to do, if you know what I mean. Like, you can work and you're gonna do a decent job, but like, if you're really pushing the limits, I think you need to have that drive and that vision that you believe in, so that you can communicate that out to everybody you're working with. So I think it was the most fair thing. Also, I was also a little bit tired, we can say, from those 3 years. As I said, like, I had young kids. I was starting when I was 24, and I was something 28 or something like that. And it had been a tough experience also. It wasn't just like the good stuff, so to say, like a lot of tough things that have happened through that. So I felt like really good moment to start something new, and for us to move back to Sweden.
When you get players for, let's just focus on Åland United before we move on to your last few clubs. To get players on board at the club, isn't the third, fourth, second division, around those sorts of levels, how do you get the players in? Because I know in England, for example, it'd probably be mostly English players or Welsh or Scottish or Irish players. So to get players in Sweden, what is that like? Or shall I say Finland? Sorry.
Yeah. So I mean, Åland United had always had like a good reputation of being like a women's club who was pushing the boundaries in Finland, like being one of the best clubs in Finland in the top division there, and it had just been on a like bad track for a couple of years before I came in, but before that the history was good, so to say. So the reputation was still quite strong. We just needed to lit the spark again a little bit. But then so what we could give there in terms of in Finland, we gave that kind of professional environment where they were paid some money, they could do it almost full time, like focus on that, and all the players who came there were focused on football. They weren't just living in the city like in Helsinki or somewhere else where you have so many different players to choose from. It's convenient to just live there and play in a team. But if you're actually moving to Åland, you're taking a big decision of like, okay, I'm investing in this. So in that term, like we were looking at first of all, younger people or like under 23, like, okay, can we get these people? They want to take the next step, and they maybe want to move abroad after also, like going to Sweden or out into Europe. So they have ambition, they have talent, but they're also not done yet, so to say. And as soon as you got some momentum from the first season, like when we did that was maybe the most important one in 2018, because then we came third from like where everybody was thinking, okay, what's going to happen with the club? And then we managed to come third in the league, and I think that pushed everything in the right trajectory and started the momentum of like, okay, then we can sign some better players, and then the next year we can sign even some more players. And then for 2020 we had a champion team, so to say. Like it was a team that should win. and so it was built over time with like, okay, a couple more, the reputation is building back to its former glory, so to say, and then everything fell into place.
I keep stalling because I have so many questions to ask. But before we move on, and I know I've said that a few times, I wanted to ask you about your philosophy. Because I know, for example, Dalibor Savic, and I base him quite a lot because he's been around the region that you've been in. He bases a lot of his time on the players and how the players are feeling. And he wants to be sort of like less of a coach, more of a brother to them, which for some clubs might work really well. For some others, it might not work too well. So for you, what would your philosophy be?
Oh, well, it's definitely about the players. I did my thesis in psychology on athlete leadership, so I believe a lot in bringing out like the group's competence and the group's leadership. And I think I had some quote there for just Åland United season or time there, like something in terms of like, okay, when you have done it all and everything is finished, then they will say they did it themselves. Old quote that I don't remember exactly now, but like the idea of it, at least, like you're giving over the responsibility, you're giving over the team almost. So it wasn't at all like that in the beginning. Then it was more hands-on. It was more like my ideas, my way, and this is like the way we're gonna do stuff, to give like a clearer picture. But then over years then, and with more maturity from the players and more experienced players coming in, we could start to adapt that. And all of a sudden, or in the end, I would say it was very team or player driven or led almost. Of course, you're still there guiding and like making sure that everything is going in the right direction. But and that can be a very tough thing to do as a coach. You want to have control. You want to be there and making the decisions and having an effect. And it is definitely a balance there. Like if you're doing it too much, then you almost take on a role where you don't have authority anymore. But if you're doing it in a good way, you actually get more authority from it, or more like following, so to say, like from the ones. But as a young coach, it was a little bit tricky balancing that, because I was still so unexperienced, and I still am, so to say, like still young. So it can be, you really need to work with yourself to like, okay, I still believe in this, and I know that even if I'm not like the loudest person here now and like taking the most place, this is good for the team. This is good for the team performance. This is good for the individuals to grow. So I think that is a big thing for me. And yeah, I really love doing it together with the players. Like it's for them, it's for those persons, like seeing them being challenged and seeing them overcome that and growing, both on the field, like learning new stuff, but also like even more as humans, like they are also growing, like they are getting older, they are learning more things, and they are maturing, and you're supporting them in that. And I really love that part. It's not always easy, you don't get along with everybody, and some players are not playing so much, and some have different expectations, and in some way, the chemistry is not working. So it's not that it's been perfect with everybody, not at all. But you're learning from that also, and hopefully becoming a little bit better in broadening your view as a coach, and maybe handling it better next time. But my philosophy is very much around how I can bring out the best in people, and then you really need to give over some responsibility. Football-wise is a different question, or like that's a different philosophy, or we can call it, but it needs to be aligned, of course.
So in the next 5 years, I believe you went into about 4 different roles or clubs. So let's start off with Umeå IK 2020 to 2022. You were the head coach and sporting director, and then the head coach again. Is that right?
Yeah. So I mean, the first year we were in the second tier, like in Elitettan with Umeå IK, a former really big club who has won even the Champions League. But at the moment, in Elitettan, not so much money. We needed to rebuild. and put a lot of like emphasis on bringing in academy players. I think half the team, half the team was academy players coming up. And yeah, that first year I was the sporting director, and then we managed to win Elitettan, play some really nice football, and yeah, a lot of happened with the young players. They really grew and developed. But then the second year, when we went up into Damallsvenskan, I said that I didn't really want to continue as being in both roles, because definitely something I learned also, like when the coach is resting, the sporting director is working. So that can be tough, a tough combination. I know in England, for example, it's a lot more common with this manager role where you are, overseeing everything. But then you have people that you can delegate to. On this level that I was working on, then you did a lot, So I said that it's better if someone else can take on the role as a sporting director, so then I just continued as the head coach.
You reached a Swedish Cup semi-final, which was another historic thing that you've done at a football club, because it was the first time to reach the semi-final whilst in the second tier. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. Like when we were playing in Elitettan, we managed to do that, and I mean, not historical for Umeå itself, as you said, like they have been winning the Champions League, but in terms of like a team from the second division like that coming into the semi-final in the Swedish Cup, that was a big accomplishment for a team. Yeah.
IK Uppsala came up next. I've definitely not said that correctly, but anyway, we'll have to move on. I'm sure you'll give us a better pronunciation. But I believe someone played for this club, and I can't quite remember who it was. But you took over mid-season in Sweden, and you led it to its best ever finish. So again, you've been in the game for not too long, and you're constantly breaking records.
Yeah, depending on how you look at it. But yeah, some really good success. But with IK Uppsala, so that club hasn't. They have been once before in Damallsvenskan, and then they weren't close to staying up. This time we were really close, but we didn't stay up. So I mean, at the same time, it was a really negative experience of like going out from the league. But at the same time, it was the best point collected and everything like that. So I mean, it was a big step, and it was really close. If you're thinking about some player that you might know, it might be Milla Majasaari, is a goalkeeper for Crystal Palace in the women's Super League there in England. So she was the goalkeeper for us in IK Uppsala that year, and now she's there, for example.
Wow, that is no. I think I've got the player, but I don't think you would have coached her because she was there in 2022. It was Nicole Robertson.
Yeah.
Do you know her?
Yeah, I know her because she's up in Umeå now, so I just know her by that.
Yeah, she's been everywhere in Sweden, Finland. She's been absolutely everywhere. And so talk to us about what you're currently doing, because obviously you are over in America. Well, I know you're doing it remotely now, right? But
yeah, exactly.
Talk to us about that.
So I'm still in Uppsala in Sweden, and since the summer I've been working as a scout for San Diego Waves in the American League then, NWCL, and that's part-time, so I'm doing it remotely, mainly through video, and here in Sweden I can go and watch some Damallsvenskan games also. So I'm mainly scouting players here in Scandinavia through video, but also different tournaments, under 20 World Cup, under 19, under 17 European Championship or whatever it can be. So I mean, it's coming up tournaments in this summer also, like the European Championship. So that's been really interesting, like a new thing, and learning from people, working together with people that have been involved in the game for a long time and on different levels, and now a different culture, a different country. Haven't been there yet, but we're planning that I'm gonna go there soon in like a couple of months to visit the club and get a better view into the team close up also. So that's going to be great. And so I'm scouting players and filtering it out, and then of course the decision making is higher up in the club, but that's my role, and I really enjoyed it. It's very flexible in terms of you're not strung up like a practice time, like you need to be there or for a game, so you can distribute your time very well. And then together with that, I'm also coaching again now here in Uppsala but then on the men's side actually, so that's new, or boys side, so in the academy for the men's team here, IK Sirius. So that's really, really, really nice. Also, nice to be back on the pitch.
Would you like to stay in the women's game, or would you like to venture over to the men's? Because I know if you wanted to go into the women's game, I think it's probably a much more feasible route if you wanted to get into Women's Super League or somewhere like that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done most of my career in the women's side, so that's reasonable or like very true. But I don't really mind. Like I have really loved being on the women's side, like coaching women's teams. It's been really rewarding, and I think it's really fun also working with the boys academy here. So in my mind, it doesn't really matter. Like I don't really care. It's football. I do really love being on like the highest level, sort of like the elite level. So that's different. And as you say, like going abroad, yeah, it's probably more reasonable doing that for me in terms of my career on the women's side. So it would be definitely would be cool to going on an adventure, so to say, like in doing something abroad. And you never know if that's going to happen or not. I'm fine coaching here also, but the adventure would be cool at some point, definitely.
So currently with San Diego Wave, if you find a player that you think is, acceptable to play for the club, how do you, keep tabs on that player? Do you watch a player for a set amount of time? Is it a few games, one game? How do you make your mind up? And then is it an email that just sends over to the club?
Yeah, I think we have quite a constant communication there, going through our WhatsApp groups or having meetings, through like this. I'm scouting a player over time, or we are scouting players over time so that we can see them more than once. And when it's getting more heated up, then we want to see them live also, preferably. But what would I say? Like sometimes it can go quite fast. When you find someone that stands out to you, then you're like, oh, it can be after 10 minutes that you realize that this is an interesting profile, and then of course you start watching her more, so that you get more info, more data on her, so to say. But like the process for me as a scout, it can be quite a long way to actually coming to that last decision that she's going to be signed, or that she's also wants to be signed, all that. So I would say that my role is quite long term in terms of like, okay, we have these players under our surveillance, so to say, like we're checking, and then okay, we need this kind of type. Okay, we have a couple of names here. Should we watch them more now? Then we're being more intense with those players and seeing where it goes. So something like that.
So for a scout, then the role of a scout and the end goal will obviously be to get a player that you've seen. But then imagine that the club doesn't want to sign the player, or the player doesn't want to come to the club after all those weeks and weeks and potentially months of work. Do you feel a bit let down if that would be the case, where you just worked so hard?
Yeah, I mean, yes, probably not so much, but like I can definitely compare it to when you were trying to sign players for your team as a coach or as a sporting director, when you're so close and then it falls through for some reason that the player doesn't want to, or whatever it can be. It can be devastating in the moment. But here it's more clear that I'm not so hands-on in that sense. So I'm more like giving out my work, or so to say, like, here is my assessment, you do what you want with it, kind of. Not in a bad way here, like this is my assessment, here you have names, and then it's not my decision anyway. So I think I have a good acceptance for that, but we'll see if it's gonna be when I really have someone that I really like, and then I don't understand. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Because I know that scout reports. Again, I spoke to people in the past that have said that. No, I think it was the manager that said that he's been given really detailed scout reports from one scout, and then the other one's just given a name and the age and the position. So, what sort of scout are you? Do you prefer to go in depth and find that?
Just the name. No, I mean, I think trying to describe the player as much as possible, but I think it depends. Like sometimes you're giving a more thorough like description, and sometimes it's more closer to just being a name and saying like, hey, she's good, check her out yourself now, kind of like that. It's more if it's urgent, we're searching for someone, and then it's more about like, okay, I really see quality in this player, but since you're the one making the decision, here, take a look yourself. Could be like that. But overall, we have different data points, or what we can call it, that we're wanting to have info on, and then of course the description from me as a scout, like what I see. So that together builds some kind of picture for everybody.
So looking into the next few years, where would you like to see yourself? I know that 30 years, like we said before, you could still be in the game, but in the next 10, 15 years, where would you like to see yourself? Would you like to see yourself at, achieving success in a short time, or would you rather be at a club for a longer time, achieving some stuff?
Oh, good question. So here's gonna be an answer that maybe is conflicting. So I would want to work on the elite level again, and I would want to work over a longer time. Yeah, and those two doesn't go together. So because when you're on the elite level, you have 2 years maximum, and then you're out. No, so that's a hard question, or actually a realistic like perspective, that if it's very rare, it does happen, of course, but it's very rare that you're gonna be 6-7 years as an elite coach somewhere. It's very, very, very rare. And I mean, if that happens, that means that you are enjoying yourself, that you're doing a good job, and the club is also feeling that you're doing a good job. So I mean, that would be awesome. But I also have the acceptance of understanding that, okay, if you want to be in the elite game, you might need to move on also. So for the moment, really enjoying my time and my distribution of work, so to say, like with Sirius and with San Diego Waves. Have a good good life for the moment. But yeah, in the future it would be really cool to work abroad in an elite club again.
Well, Samuel, thank you very much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure learning about your career, really in depth as well. Really good to hear some cool stories and how the game runs behind the scenes. And I wanted to thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you very much.
No worries.